So we're coming up on our time, but just kind of like based on like reflecting on what we had and looking at what we have now and just like what's coming up. Like, just give me 5 minutes on like what do you think the future of Marvel looks like at this point in 2025?
So here's the thing about Marvel is, and I was talking to my girlfriend about this last night because she's a really big Marvel fan too, and she actually helped me put my list together. I screen shared my letterbox and I was like, all right, let's put this list together.
All right, let's do this.
And we both kind of talked about like there hasn't been a really captivating Marvel movie since Endgame.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can say like Far From Home, No Way Home, like you can say stuff like that and that's fine. But I think the difference is Marvel has kind of been declining in quality, which is weird because the movies started going down, but the shows were going up because we got WandaVision, Loki, Hawkeye, like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which was all right.
Yeah, it's fine.
But what I think is so interesting is it's like flipped. And now like Kevin Feige was like, hey, we're going to go back to like 2 or 3 movies a year and 1 or 2 shows instead of pumping out like, remember in 2021 when we had 4 movies and 5 shows?
Dude,
in this
it was way too
year?
much.
It was a crazy year to be a Marvel fan.
Yeah.
And we covered pretty much all of it.
Yeah, no, we
which
did.
is crazy. So just to kind of see how far it's come, because they're not really like, because we're going in, like they're starting filming Avengers Doomsday this year, coming out next year.
Oh my god.
And it's like we don't have any established, like you've kind of lost the connective
left.
thread of who your group of characters is. Because going into the first Avengers, you know, we had Iron Man 1 and 2, Captain America, Thor, Hulk, and I think there was one other movie. But I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was Iron Man 2. But then, like, going into that, you had your established characters.
Right.
And they had been established in these other movies together. So when you brought them together for Avengers, it's like, okay, that's cool. But now we're going into Avengers Doomsday with who? Like, to Falcon, Captain America, I guess the Fantastic Four, because that movie's coming out.
Yeah.
Maybe Wolverine, the Thunderbolts, Black Panther, because I think his sister took over.
Yeah.
I don't know if Shang-Chi is going to be in the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to bring Tom Holland's Spider-Man in.
Yeah.
Like, so it's kind of like a jumbled mess of like, what are we doing? We're starting
like,
another Avengers
plan?
movie. And I think that's also because Marvel kind of lost their identity after Endgame, except for the couple like loose threads they still had from the Endgame saga, like the Infinity Saga of Spider-Man. We got 2 more movies out of that. Guardians, we got movies out of that. Loki, we got 2 seasons out of that. WandaVision, we got a season out of that. Like, even Hawkeye, like, they got a season out of that. But then once you start tying up those loose ends, it's like, wait a minute. We didn't really set up for another saga here. And the multiverse thing is so old.
It's done.
It's already so old. Because the multiverse removes all stakes from any project ever. Because, like, RDJ is playing Doom. So is that just an Iron Man variant and they're going to turn him good and now we have RDJ back as Iron Man?
Right. Like, which is cheap.
So, I don't know. Marvel's kind of in a free fall at the moment, and there's
one of
not
the
really
largest
a Marvel
fall-offs.
movie. There's not one coming up that I'm like, oh, I need to be there day one.
Right.
Like, I'm going to go see Fantastic Four. And if I am there day one, it's because I'm going with friends who want to go see it day one. But, like, obviously I wasn't there day one for Captain America.
Right.
And even if I was,
because it was Valentine's Day.
Because we were going to be doing an episode on it.
Right.
Like, it wasn't even because I really was like, oh, I'm so excited to go see Captain America. Like, I don't know. And it's so, like, mind-boggling to me that Captain America Brave New World has, like, a 54% on Rotten Tomatoes. I remember when Marvel movies, by and large, with the exception of, like, Thor the Dark World, were all, like, 90 and up. 90 was, like, a 90 was bad for a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
And that was saying a lot because they were all, like, high 90s. And maybe like mid 80s on a bad day. But now it's like, what do you mean we have a 54% Marvel movie? What?
Yeah.
How did that get made?
We're considering that good.
Yeah,
like,
and we're saying, oh, this is fine. Like, no.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think one of the Marvel's biggest problems right now is they're not interested in making individual movies anymore. Because to set up the Avengers, they had to do Iron Man, the Iron Man movie. They had to do Captain America, the Captain America movie. And they had to do Thor, the Thor movie. But they're so invested in their group dynamics now that they're so like, we need to do a Thunderbolts movie. And it's like, they're trying to streamline character establishment when it's like, we're going to put 5 of them in this movie so that we can establish all of them and get to Doomsday quicker. And then it's like, oh, we're going to throw all the Fantastic Four in this movie, which Fantastic Four has never had their own standalone movies. So like, that's fair because they are a team. That's fine.
Right. Like they're a group. So it makes sense to have them
so
all
it makes sense
in one thing.
But also so now are we taking the group of Fantastic Four and adding them to a bigger group in Avengers? Because now they're operating as a group entity in a larger group, and it's just really hard to keep up with all of the relationship dynamics. And that's why I was actually really excited for Brave New World, because I was like, finally, a movie that's just about a character. Like, we finally get a Captain America movie. And, the reviews aren't great. Audience score is at about 78 right now. I've heard it's a good popcorn movie, but not much after that. So, I don't know. I really think if we start to lean more towards like, okay, this is even like Shang-Chi was not a bad movie. It really wasn't that bad. But then you look at like Black Widow and it was like, okay, they were like, we're doing a Black Widow movie. And then they gave her 5 other people as a team.
Right.
And it became a team movie and just to set up the Thunderbolts. And it's like, well, you're so disingenuous to her character. So I think that Marvel is in an awkward spot where they had an expectation put on them that they just couldn't deliver on forever, and now they're scrambling to pick up the pieces to say, look at us, we're building to something bigger, this is what you wanted, when in reality they misinterpret that, and the fans all they really want is a good freaking movie. I don't care if it builds to something else, and if it does, you have to do that in a subtle and nuanced way. But to say, oh, we're building up to Doomsday, isn't this what you wanted, is just a bad take. That's not true. That's not the point.
Right. Like, it is what we wanted, but I also think there's something to consider of, I don't know if the audience has the retention time to build up to something like that again. Because think about how much the human attention span and retention has changed since 2008, or even from 2019 when they released Avengers Endgame. Like, the advent of TikTok and short form content, attention span is low. And in the consumer culture we're in, it's very easy to move on from like project to project. So Marvel is stuck having to figure out, how do we jump from project to project with the audience while also trying to build up something human and relatable. And I think their best chance to do that is Spider-Man 4.
Yeah,
if they can
I agree.
Somehow like course correct and re-navigate and figure all this stuff out. And like, even Multiverse of Madness became more of like a team movie because it wasn't just Doctor Strange. It was Doctor Strange and America Chavez, and Wanda was there, and like all this other stuff that was happening that's like, what? So
every episode every movie has to be a crossover episode now, and it's just not true. And also, like, speaking on the attention span narrative right now, I would argue that audiences have a much higher attention span than studios give them credit for, but it has to be worth their time. Audiences will sit through a 3-hour Christopher Nolan movie because he makes it worth their time. We're not watching Marvel movies the reason why we're not connecting to Marvel movies now is not because our attention span is lower. It's because we're realizing that there's better things that we could be giving our attention to, and they're not valuing our attention, and so we're going other places. So
Right.
I really think Marvel could swing back and do the 20 movie narrative, but they're not going to take the time to quality control all 20 of those movies to keep our attention.
Yep.
And I think that's more of the nuanced conversation that media is leaning towards now, because you see shows like Severance are like, long form weekly TV has been like declining for years because of our attention spans. But people are following Severance weekly and they're super into it. And so like Marvel could get back into that, but they're not going to take the time or the money because it's too risky, because
Right.
you could get 10 years into 6 movies, screw it up and lose them, and studios aren't willing to take that financial risk anymore like they did in 2008. So what do we do?
Nothing.
Like, are we just stuck with crappy Marvel forever now? Or like,
Yes.
are we eventually just going to stop making Marvel? Like, what's the
I think
plan?
the MCU should have ended at Endgame. And maybe some of those like external projects that kind of like fringed out.
Yeah.
I think they would have been better to cut their losses and end there and just make those individual standalone movies.
Yeah.
And like, instead of trying to continue the current MCU, just start over and build from there. Because then
We
you
need
have
a
like
hard
your
reset.
Shang-Chi, your Eternals, like Black Widow could be a different Black Widow. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a better way to go about it, but
Yeah. Because
whatever
it's
they're
not like
doing,
the
not
comics
working.
don't. It's not like the comics don't have the content.
Right.
Like, you could hard reset Marvel with simply just the characters that they included in the Xbox 360 Lego game.
You
like,
could hard
that is
reset
true.
and just do the X-Men.
Literally.
Like, now that you have the
literally.
X-Men, like, just do that.
Right. Like, I feel like we're overthinking it. Like, we don't. I don't know. We're overthinking the MCU. Like, it has to be this spectacle when we just don't want to pay for the quality of the spectacle.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, I'm gonna go see Fantastic Four. I'm excited about that, and
Me too.
I think it looks halfway decent, and I think it has potential.